looking to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Odanga bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines.
To July 3 as a period of national mourning over the passing of former President Benigno Aquino III.
Thai authorities on Tuesday green-lighted a pilot model for quarantine-free travel to ultra-popular beach destination Phuket, a first step towards the tourist-hungry kingdom's goal of resuscitating its pandemic-battered economy.
An aid to humanity was recently conducted in Thailand. TBC Thailand Bureau's Gila Pablo will give us the update.
Parts of Bangkok have greatly affected the economy.
First in our headline, former Philippine President Benigno Aquino, the reserve scion of one of Asia's most famous political families, died on Thursday and he was 61. Former President Aquino, who was in office from 2010 to 2016, was the only son of the late former President Corazon Aquino and her assassinated husband, Senator Benigno Aquino. Aquino was rushed to the Capital Medical Center in Manila early Thursday, local media reported. Foreign Secretary Teodoro Locsin tweeted his grief over the death of a sea green incorruptible. He said Aquino was brave under armed attack, wounded in crossfire, indifferent to power and its trappings, and ruled our country with a puzzling coldness, but only because he hid his feelings so well it was thought he had none. Prior to his death, Noynoy was reportedly undergoing dialysis for at least 5 months. He was also suffering from diabetes and lung issues. He had also recently undergone a heart operation. Former President Aquino, who was succeeded by President Rodrigo Duterte, waged an anti-corruption campaign during a term that ushered in key economic reforms. Unusually for the conservative country, former President Aquino remained a bachelor throughout his life, though had relationships with a number of women. Former President Aquino was born on February 8, 1960, to one of the country's wealthiest land-owning political families. A latecomer to the president race in 2010, he declared his candidacy only after his mother's death from cancer. The previous year had plunged the country into mourning and demonstrated the power of the family name. He made fighting corruption his mantra, capitalizing on his family's clean reputation, and vowed to reduce the poverty afflicting a third of the population. His administration delivered average annual economic growth of just over 6.0%, the highest since the 1970s, handing the country investment grade status, but poverty remained endemic. Former President Aquino, who earned an economics degree from the elite Ateneo de Manila University, was long mocked by opponents as a fortunately surname underachiever with no administrative or business experience. They also said he had little to show for the more than a decade he spent as a congressman and senator. But the chain-smoking Aquino blossomed during the election campaign into a confident public speaker and the nation's leading critic of his predecessor, Gloria Arroyo, who was arrested for corruption after she left office. And former President Aquino had a bullet lodged in his neck, one of 5 that struck him when rebel soldiers attacked the presidential palace in 1987 in a coup attempt against his mother that killed 3 of his bodyguards. Aquino put the Philippines' long-running dispute with China over competing claims to the South China Sea at the top of his foreign policy agenda. He launched a landmark case with the UN-backed tribunal to challenge Beijing's claims to most of the sea or Southeast Asian nation, which ruled in favor of the Philippines, but Beijing rejected the decision.
Tributes poured from around the world today as countries honor the legacy of former Philippine President Benigno Aquino III. Take a look. British Ambassador to the Philippines and to Palau, His Excellency Daniel Cruz, said, "I'm extremely saddened by the passing of former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III. My deepest condolences to his loved ones and to the people of the Philippines." The French Embassy in Manila said in a tweet, "Philippines' bilateral relations and friendship between our two countries reached new heights during the presidency of former President of the Philippines, Benigno Aquino III. We offer deepest condolences to his family, friends, and colleagues, and to the entire Filipino nation." Charge d'Affaires John Law said, "On behalf of U.S. Embassy, I offer our deepest condolences to former President Benigno Aquino III's family and loved ones. As this heartbreaking time, we are saddened by President Aquino's passing and will always be thankful for our partnership." The Philippine Department of Foreign Affairs has sent a heartfelt tribute calling Aquino a great man, leader, and nationalist. The department, led by Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin Jr., expressed condolences to Aquino's family and recognized the former leader's legacy related to foreign policy and history. The European Union said the EU delegation and flag of European Union family in Manila expressed their condolences to the Aquino family. Fond memories of his visit to Brussels in 2014. We mourn a friend who pushed for a deepening of our relations. Australian Ambassador to the Philippines, His Excellency Stephen J. Robinson, offered their condolences to the family and said they remember fondly his state visit to Australia in 2012 and the legacy of partnership and bayanihan they shared. Tributes also poured in from his peers. Senate President Soto said, "No matter what political side you're on, when a former president passes away, the country mourns. His death diminishes us all. Sincerest condolences from the state, from the Senate, and my family to the family of President Benigno C. Aquino III." Senator Amy Marcos said, "I will always treasure the memories of our long years together as freshman legislators and members of a tiny opposition. For beyond politics and much public acrimony, I knew Noynoy as a kind and simple soul. He will be deeply missed."
And former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III had been in and out of the hospital even before the COVID-19 outbreak last year. When the virus escalated, his staff rarely left the Aquino's Times Street residence in Quezon City, worried about infecting him. Let's listen in.
Meron yung mga bagong protocol dahil nga pandemic. I-release na po yung kapatid namin matapos na yung kanyang swab test. Kaya po yun ang explanation namin. At saka dito na lang namin ginawa para hindi rin kayo ma-expose sa loob ng ospital. So ito po yung statement ng aming pamilya. Habang buhay namin tatanawin na utang na loob yung naibigay ninyo sa aming kapatid. Maraming salamat po. It is with profound grief that on behalf of our family, I am confirming that our brother, Benigno Noynoy S. Aquino III, died peacefully in his sleep. His death certificate pronounced his death at 6:30 a.m. due to renal disease secondary to diabetes. No words can express how broken our hearts are and how long it will take for us to accept the reality. Mission accomplished, Kanoy. We love you and we are so blessed to have had the privilege to have had you as our brother.
She was with Sisters Bali Cruz, VLD, and Chris Aquino, but none of the three spoke. She also thanked all the doctors, nurses, and other medical staff who took care of her brother and the nuns and priests who prayed for his recovery. And an ambulance brought Aquino's remains to the Heritage Memorial Park. Pending the results of his COVID-19 test, Abilada said wake details will follow. QC's 6th District Representative Kit Belmonte also went to the hospital and was the one who told the media the body will be taken to Heritage. Abilada said Noy was a very private person whom they oftentimes persuaded to answer back at critics. Most of all, they will remember how he worked tirelessly for the country.
Meanwhile, Chris Aquino, the sister of former President Aquino, thanked President Duterte. Let's listen in.
Maraming salamat sa Malacanang dahil nag-reach out sila. Maraming salamat kay Presidente Duterte dun sa kanyang nararamdaman namin na sinseridad na pagkokondol sa pamilya namin. Thank you kay Executive Secretary Mitchell Dea dahil he offered us everything that we wanted.
And President Rodrigo Duterte on Thursday extended his heartfelt condolences to the family of former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III, joining the entire nation in mourning for his passing and paying tribute to the Aquino's family legacy of making sacrifices for democracy. Let's listen in.
To the family of the late Benigno Aquino III and to the entire country. It is with profound sadness that I learned of the passing of the former President Benigno Aquino III this morning. We thank the former President for his service to our country. I hope that my fellow Filipinos will be inspired by his legacy. I offer my heartfelt condolences to the Aquino family. Be assured of the government's assistance in this period of mourning. And above all, please accept the love and the prayers of a grateful nation.
President Rodrigo Duterte has declared June 24 to July 3 as a period of national mourning over the passing of former President Benigno Noynoy Aquino III. In a press statement, presidential spokesperson Harry Roque announced that Duterte signed Proclamation number 1169, declaring a 10-day mourning period following the death of Aquino on Thursday morning. Under the period of national mourning, Roque said the national flag will be flown at half-mast from sunrise to sunset on all government buildings and installations throughout the Philippines and abroad for a period of 10 days. He also encouraged the public to pay tribute to the former president for his contributions to the country. The former president was pronounced dead at 6:30 a.m. due to renal disease secondary to diabetes. He is the country's 15th president from 2010 to 2016. Prior to assuming the presidency, he served as a senator from 2007 to 2010 and a Congress representative of Tarlac 2nd District from 1998 to 2007.
Staying here in Thailand, no decision yet on Bangkok's proposal to lock down. Joining us live is Veronica Carino. Hello, Veronica.
Hello, good afternoon, Faye. The Thai government has not yet decided to go forward with a proposal made by a prominent doctor for a one-week lockdown of Bangkok amid rising COVID-19 cases, citing concerns over economic impacts of the measure, said General Natapon Nakpanit, who heads a Center for COVID-19 Situation amid Administration Subcommittee. The bubble and seal strategy will continue to be used, but with tougher controls, according to General Natapon, with details to be discussed in a meeting today, while lockdown suggestion will be considered. Associate Professor Dr. Niti Patana Shirakul, head of the Faculty of Medicine's Respiratory Disease and Tuberculosis Division at Sirida Hospital, wrote on Facebook yesterday that a Bangkok lockdown is the best remedy to the current desperate situation. In response to the capital's current hospital bed crisis, General Natapon said the Bangkok Metropolitan Administration is working with the Public Health Ministry to transfer patients with minor symptoms or who are asymptomatic to hospitals that still have a lot of empty beds. Due to the Bangkok government limited resources, beds in field hospitals in Bangkok would be increased to accommodate patients with moderate to severe symptoms, he said, while also urging private hospitals to assist. This update is from Thai PBS World. Back to you, Faye.
Thank you so much for that report. Veronica, stay safe and keep the updates coming.
Thank you, Faye, and likewise, have a great weekend. Reporting live from Thailand, this is Veronica Carino, and we live in interesting times.
Now let's go over to Vietnam, where new COVID wave infection tally crosses 11,000. The details from Micah Guineta Postol joining us live from Vietnam. Hi, Micah.
Hi, Esther. Here's the latest news from Vietnam, raising the number of patients recorded in the ongoing wave to 11,014. This Friday morning, Vietnam recorded 79 more local COVID-19 cases in 9 localities. 57 cases were recorded in Ho Chi Minh City, 10 in its neighbor Binh Duong province, 5 in the central Binh Thuan province, 2 in central Highlands Gai Lai province, and 1 each in the northern Quang Ninh and Bac Giang provinces, Hai Phong City, the central Can Hoa province, and the southern Long An province. Among the abiding cases in Ho Chi Minh City, 10 had direct contact with earlier confirmed patients, while the source of another 8 cases were still unknown. 3 cases in Binh Duong are linked to a cluster at Vietnam Housewares in Thuan An Town, 4 to a cluster at Hien Hua and Ceramics Company in Tan Uyên Town, 1 had direct contact to a COVID-19 patient, and 2 have undetermined source of transmissions. Meanwhile, the cases in Binh Thuan province are a 38-year-old doctor at Binh Thuan General Hospital and her 4 family members, and the authorities are making sure to look into their sources of infection. 2 cases in Gai Lai returned home from hotspot Binh Duong and have been isolated, proceeding to their positive test results. The case in Can Hoa is a 7-year-old boy in Cam Ranh Town who has made contact with a coronavirus case, and 2 cases in Long An and Hai Phong have both contracted the virus after having contact with previous confirmed cases. The case in Quang Ninh is a 24-year-old man from the central province of Quang Nam who had contact with previously confirmed cases. And finally, the case in Bac Giang is a 38-year-old man from the central Highlands Dalat town who is now being notified. Began on April 27, the country's ongoing COVID-19 fourth wave was by far the most challenging and has seen infections in 47 of its 63 cities and provinces. With the latest updates, Binh Thuan has recorded the very first cases so far in this wave, while community transmissions have returned to Guangyin after 45 days and Haiphong after 20 days. Bakyang continued to suffer the highest number of infections at 5,528, followed by Ho Chi Minh City with 2,293. The country has managed nearly 3 million COVID-19 vaccine shots since early March, with 143,121 people fully vaccinated with 2 doses. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Micah, for all your updates. Please stay safe and stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Esther. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam, this is Micah Gwinnett Apostle. We live in interesting times.
Staying in the Philippines, Malacanang said that the government needs to listen and believe in the experts' findings that the use of face shields is effective in preventing the further transmission of COVID-19 in the Philippines. Let's take a look.
Sinabi ng Pangulo na kinakailangan pa rin magsuot ng face shields, indoors and outdoors bilang additional layer ng proteksyon sa gitna ng seryosong banta dala ng nakakahawang Delta variant ng COVID-19. Bago ito, sinabi ni Dr. Edsel Salvania ng DOH Technical Advisory Group na mas nakakahawa ang Delta variant kumpara sa orihinal na variant na galing China. Ibig sabihin, nakabase po sa siyensya itong desisyon ni Presidente sa pagsusuot ng face shield. Nagbago ba ho ang Presidente ng desisyon? Opo, dahil ang sabi nga po niya kahapon, yung kanyang nasabi na hindi naman niya talagang ninanais na maging bagong pulisiya, ay bago niya nakuha ang impormasyon sa bagong anyo ng Delta variant. Sabi nga po ni Dr. Fauci, siyempre po, ang ating mga posisyon ay depende rin sa pagbabago sa siyensya. At dahil nalaman po natin kung anong anyo nitong Delta strain nito, kinakailangan mas matindi ang proteksyon na ginagamit natin. Kaugnay nito, mayroong inilabas na IATF resolution po noong Disyembre. Basahin po natin ang nilalaman nito, At ito po ay epektibo muli. Ito po ang binuhay muli ng ating Presidente kahapon. Now, all persons are mandated to wear full coverage, face shields together with face mask, ear-loop mask, indigenous reusable or do-it-yourself mask or other facial protective equipment which can effectively lessen the transmission of COVID-19 whenever they go out of their residences.
The Delta variant has come to dominate headlines, having been discovered in India where it provoked an extreme surge in COVID-19 cases before spreading around the world. But now a mutation of that variant has emerged called Delta Plus, which is starting to worry global experts. And in India has dubbed Delta Plus a variant of concern, and there are fears that it could potentially be more transmissible.
Even as the Philippines breached the 8 million mark of administered doses of COVID-19 vaccine, President Rodrigo Duterte on Monday said he would not gamble school children's health by allowing the resumption of face-to-face classes. The president disapproved the proposal of Department of Education or DepEd to resume face-to-face classes even in areas with low risk of COVID-19 transmission, citing the threat posed by the Delta variant. Let's take a look.
Dito sa face-to-face, I think I am not inclined to agree with you. I'm sorry, but mahirap. I cannot gamble on the health of the children. I hope you'd understand.
Two basis for the DepEd position on the matter of opening of classes and face-to-face. One, of course, which we consider very heavily is the impact on the economy, because education and the economy are closely linked. The second, of course, is the legal basis for the opening of classes and all other activities. We have a law which was passed last year, Mr. President, wherein it is the President, upon the recommendation of the Secretary of Education, who will decide on the matter of opening up classes.
I can assure them that we will follow the orders. But at this time of a national emergency, I would just like to inform the courts that I will not follow them. I will insist on what is necessary to protect the people. It is not what the legal book says about, in the matter of stopping the protocols, the requirements by law.
Following Duterte's decision, Briones said DepEd would use technology to deliver classes for the upcoming school year.
It's been over a year since the COVID-19 pandemic forced 60 million Indonesian students to study from home, and schools are finally preparing classrooms in preparation for the resumption of in-class learning in July. Let's have December Paras for her report.
So far.
Schools have been closed in most parts of the country due to the pandemic in the mid of last year. And with no end to the pandemic in sight, the government has insisted that in-class learning will resume when the next academic year starts. It's for the sake of the students whose right to education has been adversely affected by the health crisis.
President Joko Widodo gave his approval for in-person learning in the upcoming academic year starting in July, with strict requirements to ensure a safe return to schools during the COVID-19 pandemic. The government has decided that only 25% of the total number of students are allowed to attend classrooms at a time, Health Minister Budi Gunadi Sadikin said after a meeting with the president at the State Palace in central Jakarta. Students' attendance is limited to twice per week, and classroom activities will last only 2 hours per day. In-person learning is not a mandatory. Parents can still opt for remote schooling, he said. The president has instructed that in-person learning must be held with extra cautions. Moreover, school reopening requires all teachers and staff to be fully vaccinated. The government has therefore included 5 million teachers on its priority list for the national vaccination program, although a report says only 1/5 of those have been inoculated so far.
Yes, I am very aware of the Indonesian government's decision of in-class learning. And as a preschool teacher, I look forward to developing social skills with all of my students. And we are very fortunate that the school that I am in is have scheduled teachers for vaccination already, and I am fully vaccinated. And so if the school has agreed to open, I am hopeful that we are able to follow protocols and we are able to maintain a good standard so that all of our children and all of our students and staff and teachers are all safe and they are able to come and learn all these skills that we have.
Every school in Jakarta have different setup. For us teachers, we have been reporting in our schools, in our classrooms, while the students is in their comforts of their home. So if the government decided to have this face-to-face learning, I think we're ready. I just received my first vaccination this June and I'll receive my second on August.
The Education, Culture, Research and Technology Ministry has made it clear education cannot wait for the pandemic to be fully under control, as nobody knows when that will happen. In other words, reopening schools is a difficult choice, but a bold decision must be made for the greater good of children. A school's preparedness is measured by, among other things, classroom setting and compliance with physical distancing rules, hand-washing facilities, temperature check devices, and internal mechanisms to prevent crowds.
The question is, are we really well prepared for schools to reopen? For sure, we are set to go through another cautious school year. The sooner the government flattens the COVID-19 transmission curve, the faster it can realize education for all. Reporting from Jakarta, Indonesia, this is December Paras. We live in interesting times.
More updates around the ASEAN region after this short break.
This program is supported by China Bank. Your success is our business.
Welcome back to the program. To more news, a Singaporean woman who starved, assaulted, and ultimately killed her domestic worker was sentenced to 30 years in prison Tuesday, with the judge describing the case as among the worst types of culpable homicide. The domestic worker died in July 2016 after her employer, Gayatri Murugayan, repeatedly assaulted her over several hours. Gayatri, 41, pleaded guilty in February to 28 charges, including culpable homicide. Another 87 charges were taken into account in sentencing. After hearing an additional plea of mitigation submitted by Gayatri in a bid to avoid the life sentence sought by the prosecution, Justice Si Ki-un sentenced her to 30 years in prison starting from the date of her arrest in 2016. The maid was employed by Gayatri and her husband, a police officer, in 2015 to help take care of their 4-year-old daughter and 1-year-old son. But Gayatri physically assaulted the victim almost daily, often several times a day, with her 61-year-old mother sometimes joining in, according to the court documents.
Here in Thailand, hundreds of pro-democracy protesters rallied in Bangkok to call for the government's resignation, defying warnings from authorities about the kingdom's soaring coronavirus cases. We have Cristel de Maruco to have more reports. Cristel?
Yes, good afternoon, Faye. In another news here in Bangkok, for the first time in months, hundreds of pro-democracy protesters rallied in Bangkok on Thursday to call for political change. This is the first since the second wave of COVID-19 in mid-December 2020, and as the country battles its worst surge of infections as well as deaths in third wave, which began in April this year. Protesters are calling for Prime Minister Prayut Chan-o-cha's resignation and constitution reform proposals from the opposition to be accepted. This coincides with two remarkable events known to be the 89th anniversary of the Siamese Revolution, an uprising that transformed the country from absolutism to constitutional monarchy, and the parliamentary debate and vote on 13 draft constitutional amendments suggested by political parties, both the government coalition and opposition. Defying the emergency decree's ban on gatherings of more than 50, hundreds of protesters gathered at the Democracy Monument in Bangkok at dawn, the time the People's Party revolutionaries declared the end of absolute monarchy almost 9 decades ago. Various political messages are placed across the venue, along with a large placard reading, "The country belongs to the people." Protesters then marched 9 kilometers to the direction of Parliament House to insist for their 3 main demands, which includes amendment or rewriting of the charter must be done by a committee elected by the people, that any section of the charter can be amended, and removal of the junta-appointed Senate and other coup legacies. In front of Parliament, the group handed over a replica of historic plaque once installed in the tarmac at the Royal Plaza by the revolutionaries and which went missing in 2017. An open letter stating their demands and a copy of the first constitution to an opposition representative so that the parliamentarians can be reminded of the priorities of the people when deliberating proposed amendments. The current constitution is the 20th, drafted by the military regime in power between 2014 and 2019 and approved in a nationwide referendum in 2016. Protest leader from Thammasat University, Pari Chiwarak, also known as Penguin, said he had low expectations of Parliament but needed to make groups' voice heard. He said, and I quote, "We are here to make our standpoint known. It's up to you whether you listen or not. The Ratsadon group will persist with our demands. Prayut needs to be out by the end of this year." End of quote. The rallies continued through the evening at various locations in Bangkok, calling off the protests early to avoid clashes or unexpected incidents, early without camping out in front of Government House as intended. Leaders have called for regroups on Saturday. Thailand is now battling its worst COVID-19 crisis yet, with many hospitals reported reaching capacity infections since April 1st, 2021, past the 200,000 mark today. This update is from Thai PBS World. Back to you, Faye.
And Crystal de Morocco, there was also a record that police had prepared to water cannon and detention trucks. Were there any reports of violence in the protest site?
Thank you, Faye. But no, there are no violence. It was a peaceful rally done by the Thai citizens.
Okay, thank you very much, Crystal de Morocco, for that report. You keep safe and please keep the updates coming.
Thank you so much, Faye. Reporting live from Bangkok, Thailand. This is Crystal Nicole de Morocco, and we live in interesting times.
In Cambodia, dogs that can sniff COVID-19 will be deployed next month. We have Crystal Ann Ballesteros from our EBC Cambodia Bureau. Hi, Crystal.
Cambodian Mine Action Center, or CMAC, will have over 10 dogs currently training to sneak out COVID-19 dogs in other countries such as Russia and Germany. The trained by experts will be divided into 2 groups and will be deployed along with discourse. They need to identify the set of COVID-19 are posted with them to ensure 100% safety, and there is no risk of infection to people. Dogs are trained months and hundreds not encountered in during the training of dogs in recent months, do not have problems as sleeping incidents of one country because of successful training has worked in other countries such as Germany and Russia. Implemented after 5 minutes control and to help achieve our problem.
Have technical difficulties. We will get Crystal back later. Now in other news, Mount Merapi, Indonesia's most active volcano, spews ash and lava as seen from Sleman in Yogyakarta today. A 2,968-meter high volcano is on densely populated Java Island near the ancient of Yogyakarta. It is the most active of dozens of Indonesian volcanoes and has repeatedly erupted recently. Merapi's last major eruption in 2010 killed 347 people. Indonesia, an archipelago of 270 million people, sits along the Pacific Ring of Fire, a horseshoe-shaped area along the edge of ocean that is prone to earthquakes and volcanic activity.
In other news, Myanmar reported nearly 700 new COVID-19 cases, yet another 24-hour record for new infections since the junta's February coup, as the country faces a fresh COVID-19 wave. The regime-controlled Ministry of Health and Sports, or MOHS, recorded 618 new cases nationwide, a jump from 630 cases the previous day. The latest outbreak started on May 27, with most of the new cases being reported in Sagaing region, followed by Yangon, Chin State, and Tanintayari region. The MOHS has suggested that the virus has spread from India due to illegal border crossings. In Kalaimyo, Sagaing region, patients are treating themselves at their homes as they have no trust in the coronavirus care facilities managed by the military regime, according to a Kalay-based humanitarian organization. On June 15, the MOHS announced that 3 highly transmissible and more severe coronavirus variants, Alpha, Delta, and Kappa, have been detected in Myanmar. Since May, the coronavirus infection rate has increased significantly from over 3% to over 12% in June. Finally, in our news, amidst the pandemic, the Church of Christ continues to help people around the world. An aid to humanity was recently conducted in Thailand. Here's Gila Pablo.
As Thailand is currently struck by the third wave of COVID-19 pandemic and clusters of infections spread in different parts of Bangkok have greatly affected the economy, the educational system, and the society. Due to this, a lot of Filipinos are also affected by the current pandemic. According to WHO, the economic and social disruption caused by the pandemic is devastating, and people are at risk of falling into extreme poverty. A number of undernourished people could increase by the end of the year. The pandemic also causes a negative impact on one's mental health because of not feeling worried and distressed due to uncertainties.
Bigla-bigla na lang akong magpapalpitate, then magnanamb yung mga kamay ko. Tapos napapunta na siya sa may paa, nahihirapan ako huminga. Kasi during the time na nagpapalpitate ako, mataas yung blood pressure ko.
Here in Thailand, some of the OFWs are already experiencing difficult situation because of the changes and restrictions imposed by the government. Some of them are only receiving 50% of their basic salaries, while the worst that we could think of is being laid off from their job.
Sa ngayon po, ang pandemya po ay nagdudulot ng takot at pangamba sa
bawat isa sa buong mundo.
At tungkol naman po sa aming trabaho sa kasalukuyan ay medyo kinakabahan pala. 3 beses sa isang linggo kami pumapasok sa buong isang linggo. Noong nakaraang buwan, kami ay sumahod ng buo. Pero nitong susunod na buwan, hindi po namin sure kung buo ang matatanggap po namin.
The Felix Y. Manalo or FYM Foundation in Bangkok, Thailand has once again launched its program Lingap sa Mamamayan or Aid to Humanity with the help of the members of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo in Bangkok, headed by their resident minister, Brother Alfredo Pineda, to help those who are in dire need. The members helped each other to prepare the goodie bags that will be distributed to the OFWs. They have prepared such as rice, canned goods, personal hygiene products, and other staple food. They have traveled to different places in Bangkok area to reach out to these people.
Nagsagawa po kami ng lingap sa mamamayan dito po sa lokal ng Iglesia ni Cristo sa Bangkok, Thailand. Naging matagumpay po ang aming pamamahagi ng lingap sa bahay-bahay ng mga kapatid sa loob ng Iglesia ni Cristo. Ginawa po namin ang pamamahagi sa kani-kanyang tahanan upang matupad po ang physical distancing na requirement po at health protocol dito sa Bangkok na siya namin pinaroroonan.
They also took this chance to visit the Filipinos here in Thailand and check their current situation to make sure they are doing okay by providing guidance and advice during this difficult time.
Dahil sa ang karamihan po sa kanila ay doon nagsisipaghanap buhay, ay wala po silang sweldo. Ang iba naman po ay nabawasan ang kanilang sweldo. Kaya po para sila ay aming matulungan, ay binigyan po namin sila ng goodie bags para kahit bahagya ay makatulong sa kanilang mga pangangailangan.
The Filipinos are very thankful for the help they have received from the FYM Foundation and have expressed their deepest gratitude to the Executive Minister of the Iglesia ni Cristo, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo.
Nagpapasalamat din po ako ng taus-puso sa ating tagapamahala na kay Eduardo V. Manalo.
Maraming salamat po kay kapatid na Eduardo Manalo sa ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan sa patuloy na pagbibigay ng lingap sa programa ito. Patuloy po namin nararamdaman na may nagmamahal po sa amin kahit wala man po kami sa aming mga sariling bansa.
Maraming salamat po kapatid ni Eduardo Manalo kasi po lagi ka pong nasa amin. Hindi po kami pinagkakulang. Thank you po.
Nagpapasalamat po kami ng marami sa ating tagapamahalang pangkalahatan, ang kapatid ni Eduardo V. Manalo, sapagkat patuloy po namin nadarama ang kanilang pagmamalasakit at pagmamahal para sa aming kapakanan.
It is indeed easy to feel powerless in the face of the current pandemic, but there is always we can do to help others. We can always make a difference no matter who we are or what situation we are in. And that's what the FYM Foundation is doing in these challenging times, including the members of the Church of Christ or Iglesia ni Cristo, led by the church administration and inspired by their executive minister, Brother Eduardo V. Manalo, to do good to those who are in need. I'm Gila Pablo, reporting from Bangkok, Thailand. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Gila Pablo. And that's the latest news in the ASEAN region. Thank you for joining us today. We'll see you back next week here in ASEAN in Focus. This is Faye Barte.
And I'm Esther Odanga from your Thailand Bureau. And
we live in interesting
times.